Checking in live. So, if you've been following along, this is the end of a 4-part series. This is day 4, or otherwise known as Sunday, on the Seacoast Men's Hike. And Sunday, it was a glorious day. Now, we had to wake up early. And of course, this was waking up early after a wonderful campsite where, and I left this out just because it didn't really flow with the message, but Saturday night, I sat up until like 12:30 or 1 in the morning, sitting around the campfire talking with Mike, just about life. And just discovering that maybe the people that, like, we hadn't gotten a chance to talk on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday until we got to camp, and just sitting by the fire and asking him, how's the hike going for you? And then the boom, like that was at 8, and 5 hours later we're talking about life and how our experiences parallel each other. And I'm like, man, like if I don't open up, if I don't invite conversation or really invest in conversation with people, a lot gets missed. And in this case, there was the opportunity to either be encouraged or be encouraged. And I think a little bit of that happened both ways. But it sounds like, I'm not going to dive into that situation, because what happens on the trail stays on the trail. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to talk about other people's life situations that they share with me. But my own experiences, the things that I learned, the things that I went through, 100% that's mine to share, and I am so excited and happy to share it with you. But that said, like Saturday before we got hiking, before we got out on the trail, we walked as maybe 1/10 of a mile without our packs, no packs on. It was nice. We walked up to this huge waterfall. I couldn't even see the top of it. And we went out to this flat rock and had a morning lesson. And if you recall, on Friday, I picked up a rock. We were told to bring this rock with us to this big rock for the lesson. And the lesson was about letting go. The lesson was about things from the past hindering our progress. Things about, like, what are we holding on to? And I kind of hit on it Saturday, talking about, past pain slowing us down, and it can take people out. Took Ashley out, and almost took a third guy out. And there are points in life where past traumas, past pains, or past relationships, they take us out and they stop us from fulfilling on our goal and our mission and our true potential. And so we're out here on this rock talking about the impact of that and asking the question, where in life have I had something show up that's hindered me, or distracted me, or kept me from fulfilling on my full potential? And that is where I pulled my rock out, and there was only one. We're given a marker to write down all the things that come up, but I was given one word, one word came to me, and that word was judgment.
Indeed, isn't it?
And I sat there and thought, man, how much judgment causes me to either go this way or that way in life. And a lot of judgment in my personal life, like and a lot of it is like not just personal life, but like personally towards me. Like if I mess up, of course I want to be the best, I want to do the best, and I want to give the best that I can, and it's just be the best contribution that I can. And if anybody comes along and says you fell short, you suck, you're a loser, you're a slave, you're not the emperor, you didn't inherit anything, you're not going to accomplish anything, this is where you are. Like, I play small, and I see myself small because I'm like, well, I want to be better, but of course I'm looking for affirmation. I think as a male, as a man, I'm looking for affirmation from people around me. And like I hit on before, there have been plenty of times where I looked for affirmation from my woman or from the mother of my kids, from Ruth. And that hindered me. And then I brought judgment into that relationship. I brought judgment into life around me as that unfolded. And of course I'm like, well, a lot of the judgment really fell on me. And I was being hard on myself because I was being told that I was all these terrible things, and that has hindered me for way too long. And just to use the metaphor from the movie, like, told I was a slave, I wasn't going to accomplish anything, I'm going to die, freedom isn't possible. Yeah, I can dream about it, but no, don't deserve it. And so as I sat there on the rock and listened to the message and the lesson, I just couldn't help but keep coming up with all these examples of judgment. So I write it down, and then it's one thing to write it down, but then Jason steps up and he goes, so let's let go of it. Like, let's leave it out here. This is what I'm going to let go of. This is what I am committed to leaving out here. And he takes his rock. He reads out everything on that rock that he wrote, and he talks about the impact that it's had on his life and how he's lived with it and all the things that go with it. And then he goes, and I'm letting go of that. And he winds back and he hurls it into the river. And that was a pivoting point for me, because I'm like, oh, I love that we're not just writing this down and maybe just quietly thinking, yeah, I'm gonna let go of it in my head and then tossing it or just dropping it. But it's like, no, I'm exclaiming right here and now. Like, I generate life with my words, and I'm putting words to this with the accountability of all these guys. But it gets better, because as soon as Jason does that, Mark walks up with an arrowhead, and I wish I had it here with me, but he gives him an arrowhead and he said, this is what you get to replace that with. You let go of all that stuff that's been holding you back. What are you going to replace it with? Let this arrowhead represent what you're going to replace it with. So name your arrowhead. And I don't remember what he named his, but when it was my turn, I let go of judgment and I replaced it with freedom. Freedom to just fully express myself, freedom to not hold back or to hold back, and just freedom to not judge myself or judge those around me, and just be like, live into who I'm meant to be. Freedom to say, no, I'm not a gladiator, and freedom to show up in the ring and be a gladiator and play all out. And that was the highlight from Sunday. Like, no hiking necessary. And I got to spend the rest of the hike, I think we did like 4.5, 5 miles, something like that, on Sunday. I don't recall, but I just let go of things and live in freedom. Generate conversations that were uncomfortable with people. Dive in and involve myself with conversations that were uncomfortable. But then also, like, since getting back, I noticed that on the mountain there was a lot of cohesion, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of support. And of course, as soon as we dissipate, as soon as we disperse and go back to everyday life on Monday, there's some of that's missing. We got the phone ringing, got the emails beckoning, attention, kids, life happening. And it's easy to become subject to then what the world demands of us. And I noticed that right away. And I noticed that, like, more so than ever, when talking about a spiritual battle, like, I think for so long that's been a metaphor or it sounds great, it's been great in theory, but man, have I experienced that since getting back. Like, I was met with people who I didn't even know, just coming out of the blue, trying to draw a reaction out of me, tell me that I'm these other things that I'm not, like complete strangers, getting messages or stuff from, or interactions with people who's like, you don't even know me, like, and not playing to that, but realizing this says more about who they are than who I am. And I don't have to play to that level. And I don't have to give in to being a gladiator or being in survival mode or living with any sort of fear or worry. But instead, putting away the judgment and living in freedom. And what's been really neat is the last 2 or 3 weeks since getting back. I guess it's been 3 weeks. Man, time flies. But the last 3 weeks since getting back, I have had example after example of the opportunity to practice that, to just remind myself, pack's on, pick up my arrowhead, or don't pick it up. Just say, you know what, I have a choice. I can either live in joy, or I can live in a survival mode. I can either have judgment, or I can live in freedom. I have a choice. And though there's often a lot of knocking on this door for the judgment, for the survival mode, I have a great support network, and I have a great group of guys that I can call or text or reach out to. And if I ever need a reminder, I've got my army. Remind me that no, I'm called to freedom, I'm called to joy, and I'm called to greatness. And I know I don't have any like really cool hike stories to share from Sunday, because I think the thing that happened on Sunday was like the full closure, the completion of the transformation that happened on that mountain, of moving away from the fear, the judgment, and moving towards freedom. And I think this is a great place to segue and wrap things up and ask you, where in life have you been living in survival mode, living with judgment, living with fear, living with like just not living all out, being surrendered, being overwhelmed, or getting taken out like completely? Like, no, I can't do that. You don't understand, I'm disabled. You don't understand, I'm overweight. You don't understand, my wife cheated, or I cheated, or my kids just won't listen to me, or my boss is an asshole. Like, where do we resign ourselves instead of making the choice? Where is it that we're being reactive instead of being the cause? And then note that area and ask yourself, how do I want to live? Do I want to keep living at the like in response mode or sorry, reaction mode, like where I just react to what's coming and it sucks and there's a lot of judgment, a lot of pain, a lot of hardship, a lot of stuff holding me back? Or do you want to let go? Do you want to step into freedom, step into joy, and just consider that there's nowhere you have to be and there's nowhere you have to get except to generate and come from joy, come from happiness. Like, you're breathing. And even if you're blind or you can't talk, you're breathing. And you have the power to impact. And even if it's not to lead an entire army or grow an empire or build a business, you have the ability to impact or support or play a big part in the life of someone who does cause that. So in a way, you can very easily be the deciding factor on a big outcome that's bigger than you, just through influencing by the way that you show up. So how are you going to show up in life? How are you going to show up today? Are you going to play all out, or are you going to resign? Are you going to live with judgment, or are you going to step into freedom? Are you going to choose to wake up and survive, or are you going to live a life full of joy? Packs on. 5, 4, 3, 2.
When I'm sleeping with someone new, I just close my